Hola y bienvenido a la ruta de Colorado. Y hoy quiero explicar por qué estoy aprendiendo español. If there's any Spanish speaking viewers out there, let me know how I did. I was trying to say that today I want to explain why I'm learning Spanish, which I've mentioned a couple times throughout this blog. And the reason is I'm thinking about going to South America this winter to do a cultural exchange program. And this has to do with this fundamental problem I was talking about in the first episode of how everyone is just working all the time in our society, in American culture, and how that's creating a problem for me. Because I've managed to create a lot of free time for myself to do fun and enjoyable things, but everyone else is like too busy or tied down to join me doing this kind of stuff. So I explained why part of the reason behind that is economic, but I just also think a part of it is cultural, and how in our culture it's like your job is number one in your life. Shout out to my friends Sam and Alex. Sam recently went to Italy, and she said that in Italy, when somebody asks you what do you do, they're asking like, what do you do for fun or for your interest? And people will answer like, I go hiking or I like cooking and stuff. But in the US, I mean, they're asking, what's your job? What do you do? You know? And like I was saying, you know, our jobs are really a big reason behind that is just for the paycheck. So if your whole life is just based around doing what you need for money, then when are you ever spending time doing what you really enjoy doing? I quoted this Martin Luther King speech in the first season of the podcast, but he talks about cultivating that center of creativity on an individual level and how that's your obligation in life to do that. Everyone has a special, unique gift that has nothing to do with making money. It has to do with celebrating this wonderful miracle of life and how we're each a unique interpretation and manifestation of life. And developing these inner gifts that's really important, and it's really necessary to feel fulfilled in life. And right now we just don't have time to do that. And an eye-opener for me was the last time I was looking for a job, I went on Wikipedia. You can look up the amount of guaranteed paid time off, PTO, in every country, and the US is only like one of two in the world that has zero guaranteed PTO. So if you're a fast food worker in like Denmark or something, or Russia, or even Afghanistan, you're guaranteed by law to have like 30 days off per year. Most countries are above 20. Another example of this is France just had an election which resulted in like a deadlock basically in their parliament. And I was reading the New York Times about it, and they're like, this won't be resolved anytime soon because August is coming up, and that's the month when everybody in France goes on vacation. So, you know, we have to do work to provide for ourselves, but do we have to work as much as we are? That's also something I was talking about with my friends Sam and Alex. It was like, we are working constantly. We have all this technology, and what is the end result of all this? How are we benefiting from this? Why is it that the more advanced technology that we develop, we're just working more and more? At least in the US. None of that really makes sense to me. And so there is this economic component behind this where costs are going up a lot, but I just also think there's a cultural component to this. And I've only ever really lived in the US, and I want to just experience something different. You know, we do live in this wealthy society with a lot of technology and infrastructure and comforts. And I've just heard that people in developing countries, quote unquote developing countries, I really don't like that term, but I guess less wealthy countries, I've just always heard that people there are happier. I think it's because they probably just have less things, and there's less distractions in the way of what's really important in life, which is spending time with each other and having meaningful relationships and being close to the earth and how being close to what is providing our physical needs. And I know not everybody in these other countries is living on like a farm or something, but when there's less distractions, I just think that you're just closer to being like a natural human being and just enjoying spending time with people every day. And in our culture, it's just work. Work always seems to come first, putting in the hours. And again, ultimately, what's that really getting us if we're not happy? And I've talked to enough people that I know that a lot of people are not very happy right now. So I really, I have this time off from work, and I'm trying to use this to benefit myself as much as possible. And I'm hiking right now because the weather's nice, but it's going to get cold eventually. And so last winter I actually did a big ski road trip. Again, just to sort of mentally relax, but I don't really want to do that again. It got kind of boring, to be honest with you. And I do want to start this farm. So, I can't farm here over the winter, but so I'm thinking I can go to the Southern Hemisphere over the winter, and I've looked into a couple different programs where you can like work on an organic farm or something. And so I can learn a lot of practical skills to just learn how to start to provide for myself, how to live more simply, and how to grow a lot of my own food. I think would be a fun project. While I'm doing that, I just feel like I can gain a lot from getting outside this US work-centric culture, going to a less wealthy country, and just being there for several months. So that's why I'm learning Spanish. I've been learning it on the trail. I'm working through a book right now, and I have a few months to really get into that. I want to hit the ground running with that, because I want to get these other people's perspective on life, basically. I've only really been surrounded by this one U.S. perspective, and going to Philadelphia, this poor part of Philadelphia, was a huge eye-opener to me. Just, again, totally different culture than what I grew up in. Suburban American culture is what I grew up in. And going outside of the country to these other countries that I just think it's going to be an eye-opening experience one way or another. And I hope I can learn some stuff about how to relax and enjoy life, which I think we struggle with in the U.S., how to value relationships. Shout out to Marisol, who I met at the Grand Canyon. She lives in Mexico and works in the U.S., and she basically was confirming a lot of this for me. She said that in the U.S., people just kind of go to work and go home. In Mexico, everyone in her neighborhood is like good friends, and they have celebrations for their dog's birthdays and stuff. And just prioritizing that time with each other. I think that's something that we need more of. So, maybe there's good things about our culture, and maybe there's things that we are lacking. So that's why I want to go to a different culture and immerse myself in that. I like being a beginner at stuff. So speaking Spanish is like a big scary project for me. And then going to a new culture will be very scary. But these are the experiences where I always grow the most as a person, and they help me set the direction for my life, teach me a lot of important lessons about the world. So I guess that's it in a nutshell. So that's my next big project. I would like to report back what I find eventually on the podcast somehow, either while I'm there or when I'm finished, which will probably be in the spring sometime. And I'd like to just get the conversation going about this, because this is something that's in our control. Is what are we prioritizing in life? Is it our jobs or is it our happiness? And we can decide to call a friend instead of watching Netflix, and we can decide to turn the computer off instead of working overtime and go to a friend's house and make a meal together. These are things that we can start to do differently, and I think that's going to produce a lot of positive results for us. So I'm trying to find a culture that is doing that sort of stuff already by default, and so it'll be a new adventure. So So that's why I'm learning Spanish, and I'll let you know how that goes.